Hey y'all, and welcome to another dope episode of the Love Circle. I'm so glad you all are here. I'm excited for tonight's topic. I'm excited for the panel. I'm just overall excited. Like I'm filled with joy. So I hope this, as always, brings love, brings light, and bring positivity into your life. In this circle, we have a strong and positive attitude that allows us to encourage, promote, and create new beginnings.
In this circle, sorry.
No, you can go ahead, Mariah.
Oh, okay. In this circle, we have a strong, positive attitude to help promote. Assist. I need that assist.
Oh,
Promote.
I'm sorry. In this circle, we have a strong and positive attitude that allows us to encourage, promote, and create new beginnings.
In this circle, we have a strong and positive attitude that allows us to encourage, promote, and create new beginnings.
Yes. Yes. Phil, you can go next if you would like.
You're not supposed to say that? I'm supposed to say that?
Yeah, everybody.
Hey, give it to me one more time. In this circle,
We have a strong and positive attitude
we have a strong and positive attitude
that allows us to encourage,
that
promote,
allows us to encourage and promote
and create new beginnings.
and create new beginnings. I need to write that down so I can say it fully.
In this love circle, we have a strong and positive attitude that allows us to encourage, promote, and create new beginnings.
So I just want to introduce my panel. As you all know, we have Mariah, the Queen Poe, we have Tanae Amani, and we have Mr. Phil Good, Mr. Phil Davis.
There we go.
So today's topic is going to be on balance, basically learning how to create boundaries and knowing what those boundaries are, being able to identify when you need to set boundaries. So anybody want to start off? How do you know when you need to set a boundary?
I think that we all have to set boundaries. I think that it's something that we do naturally, but we don't name it. I think we all have our don'ts and our can't tolerates and things that we deem as disrespectful or hurtful or harmful. We all have that list of stuff, right? In different aspects, whether it's relationships or whatever, in the workplace, whatever. We have boundaries, but I don't think we all name them as boundaries. And I think that, in order for us to recognize our need to set boundaries, oftentimes, unfortunately, it takes our boundaries being violated first. It seems like once our boundaries are violated and we feel hurt, we feel upset, we feel angry, we feel frustrated, then we decide to name, like, wait, hold up, something didn't feel right. I think a boundary is crossed. Let me name it. When in actuality, we should start the other way around. We should set the boundary first, verbalize and express what the boundary is, because we can't assume that other people know our boundaries, verbalize them. And then I think we have to identify consequences for when our boundaries are crossed. I know for myself, my boundaries, I have set boundaries. This is a journey I've been on for a while of understanding my boundaries, and I set boundaries, I verbalize them, and I've been in situations where those boundaries were crossed again and again and again, and I didn't understand, like, why do these people keep feeling like they could try me? But I realized it was because I was given passes as opposed to consequences. My boundaries were being crossed and I was given another chance and another chance and another chance. And sometimes I wouldn't even name that you crossed my boundary. And sometimes I would, but I would still give a pass. So I think it's steps, it's identifying that you need to set boundaries, verbalize your boundaries, and to decide what your consequences are when those boundaries are crossed.
So you said we need to start first by identifying the boundaries, right?
Yes.
But in most cases, we don't even know, until, like you said, somebody tries us. So how do we start? Does the work start before trying to do that self-care, that self-love, trying to motivate ourselves? Is that the first step of, okay, I know what I like because I've spent the time alone, so now I know what boundaries I need to set? Is that how you start, or what?
I'll yield the floor to somebody else if y'all want to jump in.
I'll definitely jump in. So I definitely agree with what you said about we don't necessarily know our boundaries until they're violated. And that's at that point is that's not good. We definitely need to start. The work needs to start before. So I think there's two type of boundaries, and I think there's the internal boundaries that we set for ourselves that we don't cross for ourselves because of self love and self care. And I think that's where it starts. So once we start to realize, like, you know what, and I mean those boundaries. So I'm gonna give them names like soft boundaries. I'm gonna call them soft boundaries and hard boundaries. So soft boundaries is like me making sure I'm sticking to my diet or exercising when I'm supposed to exercise.
Real soft, real soft, real soft.
You know, setting certain boundaries that I can maintain and knowing, you know, the spaces I want to be in and, you know, how I feel around certain people, recognizing energy, also realizing like my goals, and even setting goals helps you set your boundaries, because if you got a goal or plan in mind, you know, you set boundaries to keep you on track. And I think once we get that foundation of self, like you were saying, Symphony, that is, you know, self-care and self-love and realizing like what we won't tolerate from ourselves, and, you know, how we can respect ourselves and, you know, what we want out of life and what we want out of ourselves reflects to other people. So when other people see the thing you won't tolerate or you're not doing, hopefully you won't have to verbalize them. But second step is definitely verbalizing, like, okay, maybe you didn't notice I don't like this thing happening, but because you're my people and, you know, I probably call you family or friend, let me let you know that I don't like A, B, C.
Yeah.
And if you cross A, B, C, I'm not saying I'm gonna cut you off, but guess what? I'm not gonna be with you in this space because that's not what I'm about. If you with this person that's doing this, I'm not gonna be there with you when you with this person. When you not with them, you can definitely come back and kick it with me. I love you all day. And C is just don't let the things, if you can't manage your boundaries, don't let that affect me. So I think verbalizing them is the second step, but it's definitely necessary because we don't want people constantly trampling over our boundaries, because it definitely messes with our peace. So I think it starts with us setting boundaries that shows the people around us what we will tolerate and accept. And then if they start to step on those boundaries, we talk about it. And if you got an issue, my peace is more important than your presence.
Right. Definitely. Always peace over anybody's presence.
Pass the collection plate, okay? I don't know what you've been told, okay?
Listen. So,
and I think with family, I think it's really hard. Well, at least for me, it's been really hard to set those boundaries. And like recently, I've been trying to learn how to just say no and be okay with it, and like not even.
You still there tonight? Okay. Until we get tonight, you hear me?
Okay, so I was like really about to go in, and this keeps kicking me out. So yeah, go ahead, Symphony.
So I think like for me, I realized I needed to set boundaries once I started doing the work, and I realized how much like negative stuff. The other day, Mariah, when you said you don't realize that you're the toxic one in the situation. So lately I've been really going back and thinking about past situations, and I was like, dang, like I was really, really toxic in a lot of situations. So when I was doing my work over the past couple of years or whatever, like sitting there and sitting in my stuff and understanding who I am, like you realize a lot of stuff rears up that you don't expect to be within you. And then you have to say, okay, is this something that I want to keep? Or is this something that I need to grow and learn from? And that's where the boundaries kick in. That's when the grief kick in, because you have to learn to let stuff go. You have to say, okay, this no longer serves me. Like starting from maybe October to March of this year, like I was secluded. not necessarily cut people off, but I isolated myself because I knew I had to refocus. I had to set boundaries because my mindset was business now. It wasn't just hanging with friends and doing what felt comfortable. So November to like March, I was low key doing work, self-work and business. And it's like, it's crazy the boundaries that you realize people cross once you actually pay attention, instead of like loving the person for the person that you created or the image that you created them to be, and actually paying attention to that person and who they actually are. You learn how to set boundaries real quick.
Really quick. I think, I agree with that. I think the beginning of what you were talking about is that knowledge of self piece. Like with knowledge of self, it's about studying yourself and analyzing yourself and really doing a holistic, spiritual, mental, physical, emotional self-evaluation to see where you are in certain areas of your life. And I think that's when you are able to identify moments where you may have been toxic. I think that's when you're able to identify, okay, this is my highest supreme energy. I know that I am the best when I am manifesting in this way. These are things that do not serve my highest supreme energy. These are environments. These are people. These are conversations that do not serve my highest supreme energy. They lower my vibration. That's where your boundary lies. That's when, and really with the boundary, it's about, when this shows up, when I reach that point, how am I responding? How am I reacting? Because there is a part of responsibility that you have to take within your boundary, because you got your boundary right there, right? You got the environment that's toxic. It doesn't serve you well. You got the conversations, you got the people, right? So you set a boundary like, okay, I know that I cannot deal with this. I cannot tolerate this. But when you get to the border of the boundary, how are you responding? Not just the consequence that you're giving other people, but the consequence you're giving thyself. Like, what am I doing in those moments? Am I becoming what I want to break away from? Am I becoming that? Am I falling into it? Someone meets you with anger. Are you becoming angry? Someone meets you with frustration. Are you becoming frustrated? Like, setting boundaries is such a beautiful thing, because that is how we dig deeper into our knowledge of self. I feel like when we first get started on our spiritual journey, some of those boundaries are very surface level. It's, to me, this is disrespectful. Yeah. And then as you get further, you realize that what you thought was disrespectful wasn't really disrespectful. You just were not spiritually there to tolerate that type of treatment, And then as you increase and as you elevate, your boundaries kind of soften up a little bit. But in other ways, they definitely get a little more firm, because you start to realize that this is toxic altogether. Like, no matter what I do, I can't tolerate this, So it's all about self. It's all about going within, evaluating, and as you move, as you elevate throughout your spiritual journey, boundaries start to change. Boundaries are not firm and consistent. I think that's a myth. They start to change over time as you grow and as you elevate. Certain things you used to be able to tolerate, you won't no more. Yeah. Certain things that you couldn't tolerate, you can now. Yeah. So it's about knowing thyself.
But I think that also ties into we hold ourselves too tightly on standards or things that were instilled in us, like you can't change because this is the way people taught us. It's okay to let go of the things that you were taught. Some things aren't good. Some things no longer serve you anymore. I keep seeing stuff about you're not in your survival stage anymore. You're in a thriving stage. Mm-hmm. Learn how to thrive. You already learned how to survive. Don't forget those tools that you learned there. Take those tools with you. But now, how do you thrive? How do you begin to thrive?
Absolutely.
Was that a question? You asking a question?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you begin to thrive while using those boundaries? I'm trying to make sure I answer correctly.
Yeah.
I got this one. How do you begin?
What does thriving look like? And is everybody thriving going to look the same?
I don't think so. I'm still stuck on, I guess, the whole conversation is centered around self, because obviously the boundaries come from self. So I think it starts, that's difficult. It's not difficult, but it's hard to word because I feel like the surviving and thriving mentality is also like a environmental thing as well. Because I would say, I'll be honest with you, my life coming up, not most know, just because I do so much, people assume I come from this kind of background. When Phil came from Live Oak, East Savannah, sometimes the light's not on, we trying to make it, this, that, and the third. Like, I'm not the same, well, you know, I didn't come from a pretty background, you know what I'm saying? And I just realized, like, okay, I switched out of thriving mode. And actually, it's something you have to put effort into doing, because when you're in that surviving mode, it shows in your career, your friendships, your love life. So I think oh man, what am I trying to say? It's in my mind. I think you have to change your environment, but more so your mindset, and it takes time to train your mind. I think communicating with yourself is very important throughout life, period. I may look crazy. I'm so glad for mask right now because I talk to myself so much under my mask that it's ridiculous. But I think affirmations are very important, and telling yourself, like, I'm not in this place anymore. Like, it's okay to let your guard down. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel. It's okay to show emotion. And I think once we get to a place with peace where we can be ourselves, in one aspect, our boundaries start to build themselves. Because once you get to that place, you start to realize when things start to either want to bring a wall back up or maybe tear a wall down that you built up to keep the things that you don't want to mess with your peace out. Yeah. And then once you get from that place, whether it's, daily routines, work, creative purposes, entrepreneurship or something like that, I think you start to set, I'm going to keep going with the words like soft and hard to differentiate between like the light boundaries or the heavy boundaries. So once you start to like build those soft boundaries and you're realizing like, okay, it's okay to be me. It's okay to create spaces that I can be myself in. It's okay to be around people that allow me to be myself in this space. And then that itself allows you to start thriving instead of surviving, because you ain't got to look over your shoulder or start wondering if somebody's like coming for you, or, you know, if things aren't good at home, you're not like panicking or worrying. You're like calming yourself. You're like able to talk yourself out of negative thoughts. So I think it starts with a mindset shift and communicating with yourself and being aware that you are transitioning from surviving to thriving. But because once you become aware of that, I feel like you get more clarity in who you are, your purpose, and what you want to do. So it makes it a little bit easier to navigate through those things.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
A lot.
It makes sense. Absolutely.
A lot of sense. Go ahead.
I think that survive and thrive thing is like huge, you know. That's something, once I understood the difference between the two, that's really what saved my life, you know. For me, when I was in survival mode, I was just trying to make it.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make it. When I switched the gears and went into thrive mode, I was trying to elevate, you know, and that's the difference. I feel like oftentimes we don't realize that when you're in survival mode, surviving is repeating the cycle of those around you. Exactly. Simply because that's what you need to do to make it where you are. And you could be in the hood. When Phil was talking, I immediately started thinking about DMX. Like, you know, you could be in the hood and you could survive in the hood, but to survive in the hood, oftentimes you got to adapt to your environment and do what the hood does in order to survive. But then you can also be in the hood and you can thrive by unlearning some of that toxicity and realizing that I can elevate beyond this.
Yeah.
You know, I can do something more than just this. So I think in order to thrive instead of survive, unlearning needs to take place. Unlearning certain rights and wrongs, certain do's and don'ts that you were taught growing up, you know, and then you got to reteach yourself. We have to get to a point where we are unlearning, then you start to study and reteach yourself. You really got to re-raise yourself. That is like a key thing in order to be able to thrive. And as you start to re-raise yourself, some of those boundaries that you create are some of the things that when you were in survival mode, you actually practice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Some of those boundaries you create are things that when you were in survival mode, you accepted because that's what you needed to survive, to repeat the cycle. Yeah. When in actuality, to thrive, you got to get rid of that. And you can't even be around that, you know, because that it's messing up your elevation. It's lowering your vibration. So I really think when you switch to that thrive mode, that's the moment that you got to decide that. And it sounds to some people, they shun away from it because, you know, you don't want the hood to ever think that you think you too good for them. Yeah. You know, that's what they'll tell you. All right, you think you better than us, you think, and they'll try to down you for trying to elevate. But deciding that you want to thrive and you want to elevate is not thinking that you're better than them. It's knowing that you're better than your circumstance in that moment. And you don't want to manifest as that circumstance. You're not trying to repeat that cycle. You know, you don't want your children to grow in that and see that that is a norm. You know, because certain things, especially when you grow up in the hood or you grow up in any toxic environment, whether it's the hood or the suburbs, you don't want, you think that certain things are normal that are not. Yeah. Certain things are normal that are not healthy. You know, so when we switch to thrive mode, it's recognizing that not only is this not normal, this ain't cool, this ain't healthy. I got to unlearn this because I'm not trying to repeat this. I'm not trying to survive in this. I'm trying to thrive out of this for my own well-being and for my own children. So my boundary may be, I can't be around y'all when y'all talking like that. You know what? I can't tolerate this type of environment. This is not healthy for me. It's not healthy for my mentality. It may not be healthy for your esteem because you may be around certain people in your family who like, oh, he think he's smart.
Yeah.
He think he's smart. Phil know them big words. He been studying the dictionary. He think he's better than that. Yeah. Who he think he is? And you recognize that, you know what? You're not feeding into me. You know, you're not trying to build me up. You're trying to break me down. So my boundary now is that I just can't be around you when you get in that mode, you know? So they kind of go hand in hand. Switching that gear from survive to thrive and setting boundaries definitely go hand in hand.
Definitely. So one of the things that kind of helped me to set boundaries was the fact that I realized, like, I sat down and analyzed everything that I was allowing to pour into me. What was I allowing to let my flower grow? Was it growing or was it dying? And I paid attention to the music that I was listening to, the stuff that I was reading, the stuff that I was watching, the people that I was surrounding myself with. Somebody asked me one day that was like, oh, let me see your phone. You're so positive. You got to have a lot of apps on on your phone. And when they saw my phone, I didn't have any apps that was pertaining to positivity. It was just the music. It's just what I'm reading. I watch a lot of podcasts. I read a whole bunch of books on stuff. Like, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to talk to somebody to learn what they learned. So it's always investing in yourself, always pouring back in yourself. Do the work, do the work, do the work. That's how you learn how to set boundaries. That's how you decide if your flower is growing and thriving. That's how you decide whether you're still surviving or thriving. That's how you do all that stuff. Be a part of your own rescue.
Absolutely.
Figure out what those triggers are and stay away from those triggers.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I definitely agree with that.
So I just want to thank y'all. This has been a really good.
That's it, we done?
Yeah. I mean, if you
see how she be cutting that short? She be cutting that
short. 24 minutes? We done? We just got to the good stuff.
We can go. I'm ready. Let's go. But
don't invite me to a good time.
Listen, so what's next after that then?
Well, I do want to say, I mean, we can still, because there's so many things you can talk about from, I feel like, small to big, different aspects. And the first thing that came to me, because I feel like I don't want us to paint a picture that once you get there, well, okay, this is me. This is something I have to unlearn and a boundary that I have to set for myself. If I can remember what I was just about to say. I am big on reminding people that we are human and we are imperfect. And so first and foremost, like setting boundaries and finding peace and discovering self is a ever evolving, ongoing, lifetime like journey. So even if you switch out of surviving to thriving, don't feel bad if that surviving mode switches back on, but just take those lessons to get back to thriving and get back to setting those boundaries. I mean, because life is going to throw us all type of curveballs at any time that it feels the need or want or needs entertainment. So, I mean, it's all about, like you say, putting in the work and making sure you are taking care of self. And even for myself, like I have the Pattern app on my phone. I have the I Am affirmation apps. Because for me, for one, being a male that will admit that I'm emotional, and I will definitely and can express my emotions what I feel like great clarity. I'm not perfect, but I definitely will tell you how I feel in the most respectful way and try not to be triggered. I'll go back to an old toxic field that will say things I shouldn't. Good word. You know? And so it's every day I look at it as an everyday thing. Like, okay, I made it through the day. When tomorrow comes, I will work on continuing to hold, steady and true to my boundaries. I will continue to try to do what is in my best interest for my peace. And if I can't do these things, I remind myself that it's okay. Like, I can't be perfect every day. All I can do is my best, even if it's at its minimum. And once we start to set those boundaries up, I think boundaries protect us on our not so good days.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree with that. I definitely, like, for me, the hardest part with the boundaries thing was those consequences for boundaries being crossed, especially with people that you love, people that you hold dear and close. That, because you're hurt. You don't understand. Like, it's like, I thought you loved me. Why would you cross these boundaries? Okay, I gave you another chance. Why did you do it again? Okay, wait, I told you that this hurts me. Why do you keep doing this? I told you this bothers me. Why do you keep doing this? And when I had to realize, like, wait a minute, Mariah, like, my undergrad is in behavior analysis. I'm like, you know this. You know why they're doing this, because they have an antecedent, they have a behavior. There is no consequence. The actual consequence that you're given is the allowance. You're giving them the pass to do what they want to do again and again and again and again. And for me, what I had to realize was, like, you may love somebody, you may be there for them, you may care for them, but you cannot put the expectation for them to do what you would do. My mother used to always say, everybody ain't raised like you raised, girl. Everybody didn't grow up how you grew up. Everybody not gonna think the way you think. And oftentimes what I recognized was that, I was expecting people to love me how I love them, when I had to recognize two things. In that situation, I was toxic because I'm loving you in my language and not your language. And I'm expecting you to return my love language back to me. But in actuality, I may not be loving you the way you need to be loved. And that's why I'm not being loved the way that I need to be loved. We're missing each other. Right. We're missing each other. And then not only are we missing each other, but I'm setting these boundaries and I'm thinking to myself, like, why are you not respecting this? If you love me, you would respect my boundaries. And sometimes people can love you, but they love themselves more. which is okay. But sometimes them loving themselves is having to dismiss the love that they have for you, which that's when it becomes problematic. And that's when you got to decide, what are you going to do? You know, I had to go within and say, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, I've made it clear that these are my boundaries. These people or this person keeps crossing my boundary again and again. What am I going to do? Am I going to cut them off? Am I going to try to have another conversation? Am I going to make it clear how I feel again? Sometimes I had to let people that I truly love go.
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
I've gotten to the point where I can't explain myself no more. Like, if I told you, I've shown you, I don't have it in me to explain anymore. I've set the boundaries. You clearly don't want to follow, or you don't love me enough to try to pay attention to, hey, you're hurting me. Hey, you're hurting me. Hey, you're hurting me.
Right.
Keep saying that. Nobody keep feeling like that.
Yeah.
Oh, you just.
And the worst part is the apology, but then the repeated behavior.
That.
After you do the, hey, you hurt me, and they like, I'm sorry, and then turn around and do it again.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
I didn't realize Zoom gave us a time limit. I'm so hurt by these little 3 minutes in this corner. But I feel horrible, and I'm going to play devil's advocate because I feel like the universe was telling y'all to talk to me just now, and I'm going to be honest. Like, dang, I wish I had more than 3 minutes. Yeah, y'all just said a word. And I'm trying to speak because I've been accountable for actions in situations where I have repeated the same actions knowing that it crossed boundaries in a major way. And it's still something that I feel horrible about. And it's like, I'm trying to do the work to figure out why I've done things repeatedly that I've never done before. And I think this is a huge transition for me because I'm in this place of like, not complete, I'm going crazy, but I'm in a place of like redefining my beliefs and who I am and not necessarily my boundaries, but I feel like I'm pretty good with my boundaries, but the things I'm doing, I feel like I built up a wall in my past due to people treating me a certain way. And then I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be me fully. And I just let all my walls down. And I was like, I'm about to put up boundaries and I'm about to feel and what makes me feel good. And I got so stuck into that mode that I couldn't switch off and it became toxic.
That's
and then that started to affect people that I love dearly and has me going through the emotional craziness I'm going through now internally and trying to just like get myself together and get myself back on a straight path that is like, Phil, this is you. These are the things you don't do. These are the things you do, especially when it comes to your family, friends, and the people you love. And so it's like I opened the floodgates to like be free. And I realized I opened them too much. And now I'm trying to like narrow them back in. So I'm like not flooding other people's boundaries and hurting them. So I'm in that. I hear y'all, and I want to speak in the most respectful way from people that do these repeated things. I know some people probably intentionally do them, but I know for me, I mean, granted, I had to make a decision to do an action, so I got to take that accountability. But it's like sometimes like emotions and thoughts are very difficult to process, and uncertainty is scary. Love, emotions is scary. So it's just learning yourself, being genuine, apologizing and communicating and being accountable for the things you do to yourself and to others. That's why I think boundaries and peace is very important.
I just really quick. I know time is almost up, but we're just how much time we have?
That's in a minute.
A minute, real quick.
About a three-way call each other.
When I feel like with boundaries, when you know that whole idea of what Phil explained, like just busting open and like feeling free and like fuck it, I'm gonna just do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? I think that and know that moment, that at that step in our spiritual journey, we're very self-serving. You wanted to be open and free because you was tired of being bound and that shit felt good to you. But I think as we grow, what we have to recognize is that what's good may not always be what's good for us.
Yeah.
We got to step out of the self-serving. And that's why I said sometimes people love themselves more than they love and respect your boundaries, which then becomes self-serving. Because when you really love, sometimes you got to put your pride aside. You got to put self aside.